Okay, so this is for question 2 feedback. Okay, so we'll start with A. So remember, for all A questions, it's not asking for evaluation or anything like that. All we need to do is basically remember that we need to do the deed. Okay, so remember, we need to do the definition. We need to give an explanation, give an example, and draw a diagram 95% of the time. Okay, so clearly we need to draw a diagram because it tells us to. So first of all, we need to define what a price ceiling is. So we need to define price ceiling. Okay. Then the next thing we really need to do on this is to draw the price ceiling diagram. Again, this is very quickly being done. You'll do it with a ruler to make sure everything's fine. And what lots of you did on this was you drew the line in the wrong place. Okay, so we've got price, we've got the quantity, we've got the demand, we've got the supply. Okay, so what a lot of you did, you drew the line up here because you thought the price ceiling, well, that must be the high thing. Okay, remember the price ceiling is a price that protects the consumers. So we want it to be lower than the equilibrium price. Okay, so another word for the price ceiling is a max price. Max price. Okay, so P max. Okay, so this prevents the price from going above it. Okay, so this is a price ceiling, so it's below the equilibrium price. So what we also need to put on here is the equilibrium point. So PE, QE, and what we also need to mark on here is what the new quantity demanded and supplied are going to be. Okay, so we need to explain this diagram now. Okay, so we've had a definition, we've drawn the diagram, we now need to explain the diagram. So essentially, let me have the pen over here. Okay, so we need to basically explain that in equilibrium there was no excess supply or demand, but now we've introduced a price lower than the equilibrium price. This means there are less suppliers willing or able to supply at this price. That means the quantity supplied is going to be at Q1. At the same time, because of this lower price, it means that more is demanded now. So Q2 is now demanded. This means that we now have this quantity that represents excess demand. Okay. And in your explanation, you could give examples of where you've written it. So to fulfill this, give examples of when this might happen. So the government might want to protect consumers from a price that they regard as being too high, so they implement a price ceiling or a maximum price to try to protect them. For example, in Venezuela, they have done this. So again, if you're reading around the news, you should be able to pick out some of these examples. This is why you need to watch the news and relate it to what we're doing in lessons. So again, you can choose that as an example. However, because we've got this excess demand, it creates some problems. It may cause a black market. It will create problems in terms of how do we decide who gets these now. Okay, so we'll have to have some form of rationing. There might be queuing. brought in, which might be hard to manage. Those who intended for it to help, so the government might wanted to help all these consumers get this lower price, but now that they can't. Okay, so it creates problems, and the people who it intended to help might not be able to get any now because of the shortage. Okay, and that's all you needed to do, because all it's asking you to do is analyze the impact of the maximum price. So you're analyzing this impact, you're saying that the consumers get a lower price, they're going to demand more, suppliers are getting a lower price, so they're going to supply less. This creates excess demand, which creates problems for the government, perhaps with the creation of black markets. They've got an issue because there's going to have to be some form of rationing in place. And some of the consumers that they intended to help by having this price ceiling are not going to benefit from it anymore, because there's just not enough to go around. There's less than there was before. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a better idea of how you could have tackled question A.